Hello and welcome to Monday Mug Mentions, week number 28. We are having a wonderful Labor Day here in Rhode Island. It is hot, though. It is in the 90s, so nice and hot. Compared to where I used to live in South Texas, it's usually in the hundreds there, so I won't complain too much. But I hope you're all having a wonderful holiday weekend. I realize some of you may be out partying, and I totally think that that's awesome. So I hope you're enjoying yourself if that's what you're doing this week. Hello, Gerald, Mom. Good to see y'all this morning already. Good to see y'all this afternoon for me. It may be morning for some of you still back on the West Coast. So good to see y'all. Let's get right into it this week. I've got a ton more work to do, but not as much as usual. Usually I'm going back and forth figuring things out for our last project that was on Kickstarter, and all that stuff is submitted now, and now I'm just now we do the fun waiting game. I have our other projects that I've shifted my attention to finally, and a lot of those have moved forward a bunch over the last week since all of our stuff is already put into the printer's hands, so I get to work on the new projects. It's a fun experience. So hello Gil, hello Courtney, my fantastic and amazing wife, Catherine Stipple, hello, good to see you, the designer of Nyctophobia. Actually something I am super interested in. That game looks amazing, and I've seen tons and tons of people enjoying it lately. So Gerald says it feels like morning, but it's early afternoon. Last day of Pax West. Hey, enjoy Pax West if you're there. I know that's going on as well for one more day. That is an insanely long convention. I could not imagine doing a Pax for four to 5 days. Like as an exhibitor, I would be just. I could imagine just being wiped from that. So I hope you're doing all right, Gerald. I hope that you are enjoying yourself, sir. So this week I am drinking a tasty cup of San Antonio What's Brewing Ethiopia Yirgacheffe, or Yirgacheffe, as it's normally actually supposed to be pronounced, I've learned. So Yirgacheffe is how people say it in the United States, but everywhere else in the world it's called Yirgacheffe. So I'm going to add the A to the end. But it is delicious. Many of you know my partner Andrew Toth that helps me run the company. Many of you may not know he's not on social media whatsoever. He does not do any of that. So he watches the replays on YouTube. He must have heard me say that I really liked the last Yirgacheffe that I had because this is fantastic and I really enjoy it. I'd never had San Antonio What's Brewing before. Joel Christensen says, "What's up, Marshall Britt?" I have had that coffee. It is good. It is really, really tasty. I'm enjoying this. It is a very, very good taste. I like the Yirgacheffe, it appears. I think that's one of my new favorites. Yirgacheffe, excuse me. I'm gonna pronounce it the way they pronounce it elsewhere. Anyway, it's tasty. I'm enjoying it. Andrew, I really appreciate it. Andrew has had the coffee covered for the show for like the last few weeks, but let's go ahead and make sure that we put that up again right there. And also, thank you, Gerald, for letting me know that the Facebook Live notification was covering that previously, and now you can see it. So there you go. There is the Toth family bit, and even if you're on mobile, you can now see the coffee contributor for the week. So thank you, Gerald, for pointing that out. I really appreciate that. All right, let's get into it. The coffee is delicious. I absolutely would say that this is probably... I don't even know how to explain it, but it's just a really nice, rich, bold cup of coffee. You can taste the coffee. You can taste the notes of, every bit of it, as opposed to, I'll be honest, I had some flavored coffee that was also in this care package, and out of all of them, it was just the one I didn't enjoy. It had a cinnamon and vanilla flavor, and I just couldn't get into it. It was too flavored. I'm learning that flavored coffees are not something I like. They're also usually burnt really dark, so the beans are burnt really dark. I'm learning that as well. I'm learning a lot just by drinking coffee and talking to people who spend a lot more time drinking coffee. I'm not going to put you guys through something else I learned, which is that every time you sip coffee, you're actually supposed to make like a, air sound and get the air in there. I didn't know that either, but apparently that's but I'm not going to do that on camera. That would be completely maddening to anyone watching that. So, all right, let's get into the games I want to talk about this week, which are city building games. Before we do that, let me pull the coffee down, and I will tell you about some stuff that came in the mail this week. One of them is the game that we're talking about, so I guess I'll save that one for last. However, Human Era from Layways Games arrived to me. I am so excited to play this. Now, this requires 4 to 12 players, but it's also got a solo, which I want to dive into. It's Cyborgs versus Humans. It is really cool. I actually was fortunate to be able to play test this as an early prototype of this at Fantasticon in Connecticut. Excuse me. It was a really, really fun game then. I know they've refined it more and made some changes from there, but it's sort of a deduction game, but you're sort of trying to make your side win without letting people know which side you're on. Alternatively, if I remember, you could be sort of the middle ground and you wanted both sides to tie. And you're trying to make those things happen by moving certain things in time. And there's a time travel aspect to the game that I really like. When you time travel and create a paradox, what it's going to do is it's going to cancel that paradox, which might create another paradox, and strings of paradoxes like you would think for time travel. It's a really, really clever game. I am really looking forward to playing Human Era with some friends. I have a lot of friends at Layways Games. I love these guys. They're awesome. And I really, really, really appreciate this artwork, too. This is Nick Nazzaro artwork. I have it on good authority that this week you're going to see a piece of Nick Nazzaro artwork here in my office that I will be able to share possibly with you next Monday, which is the last Monday Mug Mentions before I leave for Grand Con in Michigan and to head up to Infectious Play offices in Ohio to work with John and Ian there for a couple days as well. So again, Human Era, very, very cool. Looking forward to this. Time travel, social deduction, super awesome, fun game. Great art by Nick Nazzaro, designed by Jake and Zach Given, who are incredibly, incredibly talented designers. They're the designers of Dragoon. And all this stuff, the whole show is run by my friend John Ritter. And Jonathan does everything for Layways and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I also wanted to mention that I got my my Orc Stabber stuff in today. And I don't want to spoil too much for anyone, but let's see if I can do this without messing it up too much. I got my Spendy Orc. If you don't know about the Orc Stabber campaign, go read about it. Liam Gomzar, Orczar, I don't know how to say his name, sent this over, and it was a really, really fun and awesome thing. Martin Poole, good to see you. Good afternoon. I'm so glad you could join us. I really, really appreciate it. He says, time traveling hasn't been done justice in a game, in his opinion. I love time travel and want a great game based around it so bad. I think you'd enjoy Human Era. It's got an interesting time travel mechanism. It's not so much about going back in time. It's more focused on the paradox aspect. But even that is a really incredible and fun thing to do. So let's take a look here. I just noticed I didn't turn my overhead light on today, so it probably looks gloomy in here, but that's all right. We'll roll with it. I'm not going to go turn a light on just to make my room look brighter. Let's take a look here, and let's move on to the games I want to talk about this week. So the last one I got in the mail as well is the first game we're going to talk about this week, so we'll just do that. We'll just roll this whole thing into it. It's Sproul Apples. This is one of the wallet games from Button Shy and Jason Tagmeyer. Sproul Apples is super awesome. So let's get our handy little screen right over here. Boop, 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 boop. There we go. Okay, and I will get some pictures for you guys because this is awesome. It is really I got to play this finally today in preparing for the show. I got to play Sproul Apples, and oh my goodness, this game is so good, you guys. It's y'all. It is really, really amazing. I also wanted to say that the way that Jason does his thing when he ships you games is really cool. Sorry, you may notice I have a little cut on my head. I was working and I hit my head on something, and I have a cut on my head. So that's what that is. I don't have hair sticking out. It's a little nick on the head. So he sends it in this sort of, it comes in a little package, and it's got the designer's name on the back, and you open it up, and that wallet is inside with a bunch of other stuff, including a Button Shy sticker, a nice little just sort of play card showing off some of the stuff from, the game, and it's a really, really neat sort of piece of just marketing material, and then a bit for the Board Game of the Month Club, and all this comes together, in your little deal from say this was a Kickstarter back for me, but even if you buy a game from their website, I'm pretty sure that's how it ends up coming. This game is a really, really fun way to build a city in 18 cards. I was kind of, when I first heard like 18 cards and build the city, I was like, that seems like it might be a short-sighted or a small experience, or not as fun as maybe one might think. I had a blast playing this. This is going to be one of my favorite travel games. So the backs of all the cards have all these different modular scoring things on, and you'll have 3 of those per game. And then the fronts have these different sort of, areas that you've got to place together, but you can overlap to build roads and all those sorts of things. So I'll show you here in the pictures that I've got. This is when I played my game this afternoon. Here's my score sheet. My goal was 31 points, and my score was 14 points. So I did very, very poorly, and I wanted to play again immediately, but I couldn't because I had to get ready for the show and to talk to you wonderful folks. So I am looking forward to playing it again because it defeated me. But I want to get right in close on it, and you see what it is. You're building roads and putting together different types of all sorts of other communities. So you've got parks, residential, commercial, and industrial. This is very much similar to the video game that we'll talk about today. But it's a lot of fun. Building your city and having these limited resources. You only have 3 cards in your hand at a time, and you sort of just choose which one to put down where in the solo version. And the 2-player you're building together, so it's a co-op. It's a blast. It's so much fun. It's easy to understand. The scoring changes every single game that you play, and it's 18 cards. I'm super jealous of this one. This is the kind of game I would have loved to have designed. It is beautiful. It is so much fun. So I'm going to catch up here. You got morning, Daniel. Thank you for joining us, Daniel. In our next game, I think both Daniel and Nyctophobia get a small shout out. I'll show you what I mean in just a moment. So Daniel says it's a great game. I agree. Sproul Apples is a lot of fun. Yuri, good to see you this afternoon. Thank you for joining. Martin says, Marshall or Daniel, have you played Dice Throne? This is going to be a moment of pure shame for me right here, Martin. You see right back there on my shelf, I'm going to put my finger right on it. Right there. Yep, that's Dice Throne Champion Edition from the first Kickstarter, which I have had since PAX Unplugged last year, which I picked up and fulfilled my copy of the game there at PAX. I still have not played Dice Throne once. I have never played it. I think it is an amazing looking product. Everybody tells me it's an amazing game. It looks so fun. I would love to play it. I have had just a backlog of games that keeps growing, and it has been on that pile for a long time. I would love to play it soon. I just don't have a lot of competitive sort of dice rolly friends that like to play that type of game too often. So I'm hoping to pull it out soon and play it, maybe even here at the house. But yes, I need to play Dice Throne. That is a big moment of shame for me. I love Nate. I love Manny. I think it's an incredible product. I can tell that it is going to be fun for me, but I just haven't played it yet. I feel terrible actually admitting that. So there's my board game confession for Christian Kang, is that I have not played Dice Throne, and I've had it for almost 2 years. So all that being said, now that we've gotten my shame out of the way, city building is probably one of my favorite things in the world. In terms of games, I have been playing SimCity since I was a child. I think on week 3 or 4 of the show, Monday Bug Mentions, we talked about SimCity, and we talked about another sort of Civ building game, if I recall. So I don't know what it is. My father also loved SimCity and sim building games. So, there is a point there. My wife, Courtney, my wonderful wife, Courtney, just reminded me, we just talked about playing Dice Throne, and that's true. We did just talk about saying we would like to try it out, just the 2 of us even, just to finally get it played. I also backed Season 2, and I have a vast collection of Season 2. I think when I backed Season 2, I backed the Big Boy Collection. So I have all of the stuff for Season 2 coming to me as well. I should probably play the game. You're right. I agree. Martin Poole says he feels bad. Don't feel bad. If I felt bad about every game back there I haven't played, I'd probably go crazy. There's so many. I have friends' games I haven't played. It happens. Yuri says, this makes me even more sad that I cannot go to Grand Con. We could have played. Yuri, I really wish you could have gone to Grand Con. If you can make it for one day, I would love to play some games. If not, I totally understand. It's part of it, but I will be there. I'm going to enjoy it. I'm only really going to be there Friday and Saturday. Thursday night, Friday and Saturday. Sunday, pretty early in the day, I'm going to be heading back to Rhode Island because I am driving this one. So from there to home, I think is about 16 hours, and I want to get that done on Sunday. I want to be back at home on Sunday. So I will probably be having breakfast and bouncing out pretty early in the morning on Sunday, but it's going to be a long trip. I'm actually leaving on Tuesday to go start working with my wonderful, awesome friends Ian and John. I've been working on something that's getting ready to come up for that. If you're at Grand Con, by the way, and you want to play Human Resources, our new RPG that's based on people's business cards, there is going to be a functioning, although probably clunky, prototype ready and available for you to play. I have been working over the weekend to do a whole bunch of stuff to get that pushed up, and I'm actually going to share that with them later this evening as soon as I get some things tied up, and see what we can do to make sure we have a playable running prototype for you at Grand Con if you want to come check it out. So anyway, back to city building. Sproul Apples is fantastic. It scratches that itch so perfectly for me. I can't wait to play it in the airport and try to fit my cities onto the airport tables, and then try and fit my cities onto the actual tray table. I think that would be like the hard mode of this, is just playing on this tray table. But there's achievements on the score sheet. That's the other thing I want to show you. You can't see them from here. They're really hard to see. But there's achievements like living on the edge, like your city goes off the edge of a table and things like that. And you have to win the game to get the achievements. This is a really clever part of Sprawlopolis as well. Achievements are a fun thing in game because it gives you sort of an incentive to do the thing you're already doing. So I want to sort of just bring that back over into the video game that we're talking about this week, which is City Skylines by Paradox Interactive. We were talking about paradoxes with Lay Waste. Now we're talking about Paradox Interactive. This week has got a lot of fortuitous moments. So City Skylines, it came out in 2015. It's been expanded a whole bunch. I'm just going to throw up some footage for y'all so you can see. This is I've started a brand new city here, I think called like Monday Mug Mentionville or something like that, and we'll build a city until we can get ourselves an elementary school and a street name. And the street, we'll name the street Daniel Zayas Street, and we'll name the elementary school Nyctophobia Elementary. I have no idea why. Those were the two things on my mind while I was shooting this video. So what you're doing in City Skyline is building a digital city. I mean, if you don't know, this is much like SimCity except better. It's really takes all the bells and whistles that maybe even a city planner might have at their disposal and puts them sort of into a video game aspect. So curvature of roads and accounting for things like topography, eventually traffic, pollution, trash pickup, water, electricity. Of course, these are like basic needs, things that you have to do to even start a city. So you'll see here it just sort of progresses. Let's see here. Yuri says this makes me okay. Sorry, I saw that one. Martin says I never got to make a Megatropolis in SimCity on the Super Nintendo. Do you mean what were they called? An acro? I think that was that was the short name for them. I forgot. Oh, somebody's got to remind me what the big things in SimCity were on the older versions. The huge, once you got a big enough populations, I think it was called an acro something. I can't remember. I'm having it's a blank right now. But that's sort of the fun of building a massive city is, right? Eventually you reach the critical mass. You filled up all of your available real estate with, maybe even some high-end, some low-end, high population and high density residential and low population density residential. And eventually you say, well, the only way to grow this city is if we tear down some of these low density residential houses, small stuff, like single family homes, and we put up these massive high rises that can fit, lots of families inside of them. This is a real problem that growing cities face, especially large metropolitan areas. So Bill says it's called the Megalopolis. Am I thinking of something different in SimCity 2000? I can't remember what the name of them are. They had like 4 different shapes, and they were these massive towers. You could only build them once you'd had a massive city. Maybe it was a Megalopolis, and I'm just not remembering. But I can't. There was something else I could remember that there was these huge, massive structures you could build at some point. In City Skylines, you unlock landmarks and sort of things you can put up in different places. I remember in SimCity it was very similar. You could have like you get the mayor's mansion and you'd put it up, and all the way up to getting things like the Statue of Liberty and putting it out where you wanted to put it. There's a lot of fun in building your city the way you think maybe it should go. There's also a lot of difficulty. So I think one of the reasons that city building is such an interesting and fun theme is because it's there's a lot you can do with it. There's so much with a city that has to be maintained. When you look at something like Sproul Apples, this is, again, this is using the idea of zoning. So you've got zoning for areas that are parks, zoning for areas that are, commercial, residential, industrial. And if you have large groups of those, you get more points in general, and that tends to be the way it tends to work in video games too. It's not necessarily that it's more points, but you're going to grow your population, quickly based on this. And it's zoning. That is all on zoning. If you zone a large park and residential areas around it, people are going to move in next to that park because that's useful to families to be able to walk outside and go to a park, especially a large, nice park that's in the middle of their residential area. So it's, if you're able to give people these real life mechanisms that are actually pretty boring. When you think about city planning and zoning, if you've ever been through a zoning meeting, if you've ever listened to the arbitration of somebody trying to get something rezoned that was a residential house into a commercial business in South Texas, is very boring, extremely boring, and incredibly, mundane and monotonous. But in the context of doing it yourself as sort of this, all-encompassing being that is building the city just as using your brain to build it, it's fun and it's engaging. I really, really like the idea of turning monotonous tasks into fun experiences. That's kind of what we've done with the business card thing here, but I think city building is one of the best examples of that, because you've got, ideally, something that almost no one wants to do in real life. I mean, planning construction for your city. If you've ever been in a city that has poorly planned construction, you know what I'm talking about. It's horrible. It's horrible. You can't get through the city at certain times of the day when you normally should be able to. These sorts of things are difficult to figure out. They impact people's lives, and generally it would not be a fun way to earn a living in terms of, compared to what we do in making games. But playing games about building a city is incredibly fun and engaging for some reason. Daniel says, I'm a hobbyist urbanist, so not mundane to me. Phoenix. Yeah, so Daniel's talking about Phoenix, Arizona, which notoriously, I believe, will shut down highways in the middle of the afternoon that, has areas that are high-density population. Shut it down for construction in the middle of the day. One thing I did enjoy about South Texas when I lived there is that the city planning, while not perfect by any means in terms of the highways, was really well done. So you'd have a pretty substantial amount of the work being done overnight. And this is for twofold. One reason is it's way too hot in Texas to actually work during the day out on a highway. The second reason is the traffic on Texas highways is plentiful, so you don't want to shut those highways down during the day if you can avoid it. So in the middle of the night, when you're traveling from city to city, you might find that you're getting off the highway because they've shut a portion of it down to do some sort of construction, but it's not going to happen at 5 o'clock in the afternoon unless it's a major emergency that has to be dealt with generally. Daniel says City Council is currently fighting light rail expansion. We had something like that similar when I was in San Antonio, is that that we wanted a metro rail from San Antonio to Austin. They couldn't choose where to put the hubs and certain other things like that, but it's one of the difficult aspects of South Texas, and especially San Antonio where I grew up, is the city's so large. Even if you put a hub for a metro rail on one part of the city, it might take you an hour to get from your house to that rail anyway. So it's a very, very interesting challenges that are posed in real life city planning. Getting to see them play out in real time like this is incredibly fun if you're interested in that sort of thing. But even if you're not, I think it tends to be a fun experience on the computer or on a tabletop. Expansity that recently came out is about building, sort of high rises. From what I can tell, I haven't been able to play it yet. I would love to play it. That's one I will definitely probably be attracted to as well, because it's building a sort of city and community, or even just maybe a city blocks. That sort of thing is very, very intriguing to me, and I think a lot of gamers also appreciate that, just because of the level of depth that you can sort of go into, or how nice and sort of simple you can make it. You just say you want your roads to connect these businesses to these businesses, and that's the basic tenet of this game. Whereas another game may say you need to manage every aspect of the economics, you need to manage every aspect of the sewage, you need to manage the trash, you have to manage the less fun things while also expanding your population like City Skyline does. I think it's an incredible thing to be, explored. I do think that for some reason, city building always falls into these sort of blocks, of the stuff, and that's because city blocks tend to work that way. I would love to see a city building game that's something like city building prior to the invention of modern roads, or real well done transportation. So maybe a city building game based on feudal times or something like that. I think Circle the Wagons has some of that as well from Button Shy, so it may just be that I need to play another one of their games. But I really enjoy this theme. I think it's really incredible and a lot of fun. I think that it's something that can be explored over and over again in compelling ways. There's no end to games that are about this. Suburbia was the game I talked about when we talked about SimCity, and it's very, very similar, yet offers a completely different experience. So I think there's a number of things to learn from city building as just sort of an actual mechanism to build a game around, and a theme to build a game around, and all the things that it offers. I mean, think about the mechanism of traffic and how that works, and all the things you could just learn or gamify from traffic. I think most of us gamify traffic a little bit in our regular daily basis. You try to, if you have the opportunity, you try to leave at a certain time, maybe earlier, to beat the traffic to work. You leave work earlier that day to try and beat the traffic home from work. Whether you realize it or not, as miserable as it may be, you're trying to gamify the traffic. You're trying to gamify people's patterns that they're already following, which is that most people, at a certain area, metropolitan areas, get out of work at 5 p.m. and then they all leave because that 9 to 5 is that standardized schedule. Some employers actually even offer, we actually work 8 to 4 so that you can beat the traffic. That's actually one thing that they'll offer early and say, this is a thing that we do that allows you to stay out of the traffic. A lot of my friends that I know that work third shift prefer not to deal with traffic, and that they don't have to because they work overnight for the most part. So those are all things that you're thinking about in your daily life that end up being certainly not feeling like gamified, but they are a game. You're playing a game when you get into traffic. When you take an exit and you think that this detour is going to get you home a little bit faster, that's a game of and a little bit of a gamble that you're taking to maybe get off your regular route and take a different route home, and hope that there's no blockages in that way, or that everyone else hasn't done the same thing. So it's interesting to me that city building has not been more explored, even though there's a vast amount of things about it. I think there's a lot of other just very specific things that are interesting, including things like sewage and all that stuff, that people could have a good time figuring out game mechanisms, themes, and all sorts of things, and sort of extrapolating from those. So I think real life mechanisms are something to always pull from. City building offers, and city planning offers no end to them. So let's get into the media I want to talk about this week. And I'm not going to spend a ton of time on this. This is actually more just as sort of a PSA to any of the viewers who watch the show who are maybe not familiar with Board Game Geek. But the fact is that Board Game Geek is a very good resource if you are a starting out, or new fan of board games. If you've never played a board game and you want to go see what things are about, Board Game Geek might not be the best starting point. I would say there's a lot of, watch it played videos and things like that that'll probably give you a lot more of a starting, kickoff that is better. But BGG, if you are a hobbyist who's gotten into it, so you enjoy board games, you play them on a fairly regular basis, and you don't know about it, Board Game Geek gives you in-depth reviews, overviews of the games. People can rate their games. You can store your collection. I mean, it's essentially a one-stop shop for board games. I don't use it a ton, but we do post all of the Monday Mug mentions up there. We use it for, of course, posting our games from Yanaguana Games, so that people can find them in that database. There's a number of things we do with Board Game Geek that are, very, very beneficial, and they're beneficial to the community. So if you haven't used the site, if you don't know about the site, go check it out. That's really as much as I have on the media this week. I just wanted to make that sort of aware to people who watch the show or find the show on YouTube, that that's a good resource if you are just a starting out hobbyist. I use it to go make a lot of my purchasing decisions, as a matter of fact. So that's all we have for media this week. Quick one. Bing, bang, boom. We're in, we're out. Let's move on to the marketing that I want to talk about this week. And I'm not sure if Catherine's still here, but hello, and thank you for joining this week if you are. I want to talk about Pandasaurus games and their community engagement and how all that works. So if you don't know, Pandasaurus Games they're the makers of Dinosaur Island that blew things out of the water. They're the publishers of Dinosaur Island by John Gilmore, Brian Lewis, I believe, and then Duelosaur Island by Ian Moss. So they are a pretty big name publisher. I don't, I would not say they are a massive corporation style publisher or anything like that, but they're a big name publisher. They're probably one of the biggest indie publishers, if that would be fair to say. So they are running some amazing initiatives when it comes to engaging with your fans on social media. First of all, they seem to work with designers who are passionate about their games. So often, if there are posts about some of their games, including Dinosaur Island, you'll see somebody like John Gilmore hop on and say, thank you for the compliment, or, I'm sorry you didn't enjoy that aspect if somebody's got a complaint. And that's really incredible. If you're working with people that are willing to go on and engage with the community about their games, that's a huge benefit. So it goes a step further, though, because the publishers themselves actually interact with their fans on social media and with their publishing page. Nathan and Molly are the names of the owners of Pandasaurus, and if you've ever seen some of the pictures of the publisher page, you'll see that they'll go out to like the Target, and they'll show off that Nyctophobia is now in stores. And Nyctophobia is Catherine's game, and I believe Catherine went out to now I'm forgetting, to Gen Con, and also showed off the game, and they shared some awesome pictures of her not only getting to sort of see all the games for herself, and I think giving them a big hug, like the games themselves a big hug, which I know if I when you see your game, I know that feeling. It's awesome. It is a heartwarming feeling to see your game in print and at a show ready for sales. So there's also, they shared the pictures of Catherine with her actual family member who was the inspiration for the design of the game. And I think that's that shows that this is a company full of people, not people who are sort of behind a company. It's a company of people, and they're humans, and they're sharing their stories, and they're not sort of just putting out company logos and 3D animation sort of, or 3D renderings of their products and stuff like that constantly with no personal face. I love that. I think that's one of the coolest things that a publisher can do, is put the person back in sort of the front seat of the design, put the story there as well. Catherine says, I hug the stack of games. Yeah, it's I see you're hugging that huge stack of games on the social media present on their site, and of course yours. And that's, again, of course, why not share that? That's good marketing, first of all. It's community engagement. You're showing off that you're all people and you just love games and you love this thing. Daniel says they put people back in publisher in a big way. It's endearing and refreshing, to say the least. That's exactly what I'm talking about. They're Nathan and Molly are concerned with the community enjoying their products, and they want to make sure that they understand that it's not just the two of them doing this thing. It's everybody involved. It's this team effort, and so they're building up, their fellow designers as well. I'm super impressed by the way they engage with their community. I wish I had, some of the ideas they had when it comes to how to just discuss things with your community, rather than sort of, I don't know, a lot of times when we first started, when someone would ask a question, we'd try to be very careful about how we answered it perfectly if it was something about the game. I think that comes off as sometimes disingenuous. If you just answer the question with your first instinct and sort of, make sure you get it the best you can and continue to talk, that's an incredible way to create a real engagement versus a sort of, I don't want to say manufactured, but it's sometimes it can be hard to interact with people online and not come across as being sort of robotic. That's one of the things that I really try and make sure I'm careful about when I'm typing, is that I'm trying to, say, I use a lot of phrases often, like in my opinion, or, to my understanding, this is how this works, because things can always be proven wrong that way. So if I say, to my understanding, this is how this game was made, and if it's wrong later, well, I say, well, that was my understanding at the time. Now I've fixed that. If you leave the door open for your own mistakes, it's a little bit better. And if you look at the way that Nathan, Molly, and most of the designers I think that I've seen interact from Pandasaurus Games interact online. It's refreshing. It's very refreshing. It's very real and personal, and I appreciate that greatly. It's not to say that there's others that are doing it a different way that I don't appreciate, but sometimes the more corporate advertisements feel that way, and I get less excited about those products. Pandasaurus, when I see the pictures of them at a Target pointing at the Nyctophobia box or at the new mind art that they're publishing, they're excited. You can see the smiles on their faces and you can see the pride in the product there. And it doesn't feel staged to me. It feels like they just wanted to be like happy that it's there. That's kind of some advice that we've taken from them, is like we're less worried about the professionalism. In terms of, like, we used to wear polo shirts, have our hair done neatly anytime we were at a show. We wear backwards hats and T-shirts now. I mean, certain things that are just slight, adjustments, because we realize we're just people. We want to be comfortable at a show. We don't need to be uncomfortable at a show to look super professional. This is a game industry. We're enjoying ourselves. We're having a good time. And I think if that comes across naturally, you're going to have a better time engaging your fan base than if you're trying to sort of push a monotonous, maybe more traditional corporate marketing structure. So that's my personal feelings on things. I mean, it may, it can always change, but I am really impressed with the way that Pandasaurus has a really personal engagement with their fans. I am a big fan of their products as well, and I think a lot of that comes from, feeling like, you're part of the family when you're purchasing their products. You're part of something that's genuine and organic versus maybe just buying another game that feels like the same sort of thing. So Daniel says we swapped to bright blue shirts at Long Pack because I'm like, we're selling fun. Yeah, exactly. We have the black and white logo because I just love those two colors. But bright colors are important as well. I've really noticed that. I mean, if you look at some big companies, they've got some of the brighter colors on their stuff. Kurt says, I think most of the smaller and mid-sized companies let their passion shine through. I think that's, speaking of one great example, there's, that's Kurt Covert from Smirk and Dagger. You can see almost every one of their products has an unbelievable amount of passion put into it. And you can see, that come through in the fact that Kurt is essentially a one-man show running his whole thing with the help of people he brings on, of course, but it's incredible to see. I agree with that, Kurt. I think that the passion in smaller publishers is very apparent. Julie Ahern's here from Greenbrier Games as well. That's another super passion-driven company. I mean, there is a very, very good group of indie publishers that seem to have this same sort of thought process. Of all those, one of the biggest lately is Pandasaurus Games, and they've done so well, and I really agree with that because it seems good to me. So that's really, I think, all we have this week. It has been a really fantastic week. This is a great chat. You can see maybe it's starting to cool off. It looks like it's getting darker outside. I'll make sure we turn the lights on next week. Hello, Brad. Good to see you. Thank you for joining. Kurt, I appreciate you joining as well. Thank you. It's so good to see you this afternoon. Daniel says, yeah, but you have those black shirts and then sell games out of a Chinese takeout box. Exactly, yeah. Bright red on that Chinese takeout box. And then, of course, Record looks like a guitar amplifier, so there will be plenty of that. I do want to mention I've got my Festival of Indie Games shirt on. It is September, and I will be at the Boston Festival of Indie Games towards the end of September. I was fortunate enough to be a judge this year. I was also fortunate enough to be asked, I think, to present an award this year. So if you're an award-winning designer at the Boston Festival of Indie Games, I may be handing you something this year, potentially. Julie says, just made it for the tail end of the show. Have a great day. Julie, you have a great day, too. I got to say, it was so good to see you recently. I am sending you something soon, and I also really appreciate everything we talked about recently. It was a really, really fun chat. I am looking forward to doing that again. You make sure you let me know next time you're up here. So Brad says, me too, Julie. Yeah, it's all right. Y'all can catch it for the end. It's Labor Day. You're supposed to be kicking back, relaxing, doing nothing. Nobody expected you to all be here this week. You can check it out on YouTube, and I'll post it back up on Facebook in a little bit if you want to watch the whole show. We talked about some awesome city building stuff, and I am in love with Sproul Apples. I'm not kidding. I think after the show's over, I'm going to play this while this video is rendering on my desk here again. It's so fun. So thank you all for joining me this week. I really appreciate it. I'm floored that there were so many heavy hitters in the industry here this week. Some of you who joined, it maybe been your first time, and I really appreciate it. It's a little it's a little humbling to see some amazing designers pop in here and say hi every now and then, and I really appreciate it. I'm talking about you, Catherine. So I really, really appreciate everything other than Daniel's last comment, which says, pumpkin spiced in iced coffee. I got the holiday right. You know, I don't want to yuck your yum. You enjoy your pumpkin spice, but it's not for me. I like pumpkin pie. I think that's where pumpkin taste should live. I love pumpkin pie. So on that note, y'all have a fantastic week. This coffee was delicious. Thank you, Andrew and family. I really, really appreciate it. Enjoy your Labor Day. Go outside, do something fun, or just relax and kick back on the couch. We'll see y'all next week. Thanks again. Bye-bye.